Welcome to Drums Radio here on live on the YouTube. And I am joined today by one of the, I'm going to say probably the greatest panel I've been able to put together yet. And I'm so excited because today we'll be discussing the North American version or edition generation of Afrohouse and how it's been affected by, delivered by, and discovered by the North American side. And we've got some really great North American producers, DJs, record label owners, dignitaries, amazing individuals. I want to put it all out there, but what I'm going to do, I'm going to give them each 1 minute each to speak to each other, tell you about themselves. I'm going to try and keep it to a minute. So I'm going to introduce each of them one by one, and they're going to speak a minute about themselves, and then we're going to get into the massive conversation. Of course, if I'm going to do it right, I've got to do ladies first, because that's the way gentlemen is. We're English out here, so we've got to do ladies first.
Wonderful.
So the first person I'm going to ask to speak about herself is the lovely Anane from Nulu. Please, Anane, please tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hello. Hi. Thank you. Thank you so much for having me, and thank you for allowing me this space. It's so important. As you said, my name is Anane Vega, and I am a singer-songwriter and label owner of Nulu Music, Nulu Electronic, as well as Nulu Movement, the brand. DJ, producer, and just here doing what we love, and that's putting good music out. And again, thank you for this platform and giving me the opportunity to speak and be among such a lot of these guys that I know personally and very well. So this should be a really interesting conversation and much needed too.
Indeed,
so thank you.
Thank you for granting us the time and having you come to spend that time with us here on the Drums Radio Live. Moving across, and I'll just go along next to me rather than names or anything like that, just in case. So I'm going to go next to me, which is Adam Gibbons. Sir, please tell us a little bit about yourself and let the audience know.
Yes, brother. Thank you for the invite. As Anane said, we appreciate it very much so. Amazing panel to be on this panel with everybody. Again, like Anane said, really good friends, people I've worked with for so many years. So yeah, I'm Adam Gibbons. I've been DJing for 25 plus years, focusing specifically on that Afro sound for the last like 15 or so. DJ cultivator, creator, curator of the party and movement Uhuru Africa, which was originally based in Boston, Massachusetts, where I'm from. And we've taken that, we were doing monthly parties in New York, taking it all over the world, including doing things at ADE with Mo Black Records and some other expansions of that, performing at festivals and things like that. So that's been my main focus. And then also producing and remixing when I can find the time to. I released stuff not even in the last couple of years, but before that on Open Bar Music, Mo Black Records, Offering Recordings, et cetera, et cetera. So yeah, I mean, I'm really excited about this conversation that we're going to have, and obviously about the movement. It's been my passion for the last, like I said, 10 or 15 years. So looking to get into it.
Awesome. Adam, I'm going to take a moment to say thank you very much for last night. I know you appeared on Drums Radio for the first time on your live set. Thank you very much. It was awesome setup and enjoyed that. Looking forward to giving that a spin again very soon. Make sure you check it out if you haven't, right here on Drums Radio. Check the YouTube, Adam Gibbons. It was, yes, pristine. I'm going to use the word. Right. Thank you very much. Moving alongside, someone who should understand me fully if I say apples and pears and stuff of that nature. His name is Stan Zeff. I will let him explain why.
Hey,
is that by the stairs?
Yeah, that's correct.
I understand all that English stuff, Thanks for inviting me on this panel discussion. It's great to be here amongst a lot of people I've done work and shared many memories with, great memories with. So my name is Stan Zeff. Originally from London, England, moved over to the US in 2000. So my name is Stan Zeff. This has been this music scene has been very passionate to me. I'm a DJ, producer, and curator of the Tambor Party brand and the Tambor Culture brand, which has been going for 11 years now. It's something that's taken over my life, and I find much enjoyment and much passion in it. So thank you for inviting me here.
Awesome. Thank you. And he's originally from London, and that's the reason why he understands all that stuff as well. Right. Doug Gomez, please, sir. Doug.
What's up, everyone? Doug Gomez here. I'm originally from New York. Moved out here to Costa Rica. I have my own record label called Bear Recordings, which is just music that I love. That's I feel like it's more on the soulful tip, not so much like Afro, but I do a lot of stuff that's considered Afro, and that's it, man.
Awesome. Mr. Carlos Mena.
Hey, hi everybody. Carlos Mena, aka Casamena. I run a small label called Ocha Records. We have a small imprint called Ocha Mzansi that focuses on South African music. And I have a party that I've been doing for 15 years called Bembe that focuses on Afrohouse. So I'm excited to be here, part of the conversation. It's so great to see so many friends that I've played with. And I'm super excited to see Anane representing here for the women that are always underrepresented. So I'm really happy she was able to make it. So I'm excited for the conversation. Thank you.
Okay, great. And finally, our panelist, JoJo Flores.
Yes, apologies for being late. Good to be here. Thank you for having me. Great to see you guys. I haven't seen a few guys in a while. Based in Montreal. Started a record label, Got Soul, in 2000. Been doing a party called Therapy since 1999. I've worked with Stan, Carlos, Adam, many times with Adam in Boston. Also opened up a restaurant as well, a Filipino restaurant here in Montreal. So I've taken a little bit of a detour for music with the restaurant. Also focusing on opening a audiophile cafe here as well in Montreal. So, but yeah, that's basically it. A DJ, produce a bit of music, and a parent as well. That's important because it's a full-time job. You know that.
Yeah.
Well, you guys know it. Whoever has kids knows that. Yeah.
Definitely.
But it's good. It's great to be here, and looking forward to our conversation.
Awesome. Thank you so much to all of you. I'm going to do some quick shouts out to those already joined in the conversation that are watching and sort of commenting on the side. For those who want to comment, please use the message board. There is someone looking after that, and we'll be putting up the questions for you so you can ask for the questions. So please do that. Just big shouts out going out to FNX, who I see here, Dave Rankin, Adam Gibbons. You put yourself up in there, which is good. And that stuff. So I'm going to ask the first question, or start to get into the first questions that you might say. I'm going to say, let's talk about how you feel, or what is Afrohouse to you individually. And I'm going to start this off because, once again, I'm sorry, Anane, I'm not going to pick on you all like this. But I'm going to go with, I'm going to say ladies first.
Okay. Thank you. That's very much appreciated. What is Afro? I mean, it's who I am. You know, it's really an extension of my being and where I come from. So, you know, the word Afro now is the word to use, and seems to be, I don't want to say trend, but a hot topic as we are now. But for me, it's just part of where I come from and the music that I grew up listening to and the music that resonates with me. I come from a culture in Cape Verde where, in my particular island of Santiago, it is the women that drum and chant during feasts. And so for me, now looking back, and it wasn't until today as I'm thinking about all of this that it really resonated, like, wow, okay, so it makes sense why for me was important to just put out music that represents who I am. It wasn't about, okay, this is hot now and this is what I want to do or put out. It was just really the first release from Am Roots, who was from Mozambique and Angola, and the Portuguese ties to Cape Verde was very natural. And so music and the Afro music and the Afro sound, and whether it's from whatever part of Africa or whatever part of islands, and the drumming and the percussion is just part of my soul. And even before the label, and when I started as an artist and as a singer, and the music that I was doing was bringing the Cape Verdean lyrics, the Cape Verdean sound. And the first release with Louis was Nós Vida and Mami Mama that I wrote in Cape Verdean. So it was always important for me to share my roots and share where I was from, and bring that to the table of what I knew as the underground house scene, because that's where I grew up. I was, in the house scene of Boston and Rhode Island, and that's where I come from. And I was introduced to that scene by my gay friends. And then later, I leaned toward more of the tribal sound, then you want to call it. And as I started, unfolding as an artist myself, my natural expression was that of my country and where I'm from. And so after, playing music or being an artist or writing music or signing music, that's where my heart goes, and that's where my spirit, and that's what talks to my spirit. And for me, that's what it's about. I think that's what being an artist about is always from where it comes from, and not because it's of the moment. It's doing what your heart feels, doing what you love, and the opportunities that you can give to someone else, because that was the other part of the Afro music and the stories that came with some of these demos that I was receiving from, young producers in South Africa or, Nigeria, where have you. And the stories that came with these demos were, for me, was really amazing. And to be able to have a platform that I could share this music and put artists out there, and then have their music being played by their heroes, was, for me, it's a full circle. And that's what life is for me. That's what doing music is for me. It's not so much about what's happening, okay, because I think if we get too involved in seeing what's happening with the Afro sound, and going to different portals and going to look for Afro music and finding the stuff that I'm finding is like, wait a minute, this is not what I thought was Afro or what speaks to my heart. So for me, it's really keeping the integrity, saying, this is what I'm passionate about, and this is what I want to put out there, and creating my space for myself, for my artists, that they get to be just that. And whatever is happening in the world, it's beautiful. It's a beautiful thing to see how it's grown so much, and how it's been accepted, where at one point it wasn't. At one point, I find that a lot of, this was in New York City, at least, some of the soulful scene was not into the Afro scene at all. It was like, what is this? What is she playing? What is that sound? And that's just being very honest, and now it's the thing to do. And everybody wants an Afro mix, and everybody wants an Afro party. So that back then it wasn't, but again, when you do what you love, that's all that matters. And it's doing with love and passion and integrity to put out there the music, to help other artists, to create a platform, and just keep on doing what we're doing.
Definitely. Thank you very much. I mean, we're going to pick up a lot of what you said in there. We're going to be picking up in this conversation as well, I'm sure. But thank you so much for explaining that and going through with that. Adam Gibbons, how has your experience been? Because you've been developing a brand for a major period of time there. How's your experience been, as Anane said, regarding the soulful house versus Afro house kind of vibe and people taking it on board?
Yeah, it's definitely been interesting. As I said, I've been DJing for like 25 years. I was doing a party in Boston called Soul Revival, and that party started in the 90s. and we brought it straight through and ran it till about, I think actually JoJo Flores might have been one of the last guests that we had. It's either him or maybe Oceanlade. But we took it straight through the 2000s. It was like a 14-year run that we had. And programming that, it was always soulful. It was always a mixture of house, disco classics, things like that. But I always had a passion to bring some of that Afro sound into it. And like Anane said, sometimes the more soulful heads didn't really appreciate it so much. So there were ways that you could just tease that a little bit and bring some of that in some of the tracks. Like all the soulful heads love like Somokota, right? Because it's a disco classic. But to tease some of that in with some of that sound in with the house that we were playing, the more soulful house, for lack of a better word, like the New York style house sound that we were doing a lot in Boston. I was specifically starting to bring some more of that Afro sound into the mix. Then at one point we were doing like theme parties. So we would have like this style or that style or some kind of theme. And I was like to my partners, let's do an Afro theme party. And there was a little apprehension in the beginning, but we did it. It went off amazingly. And then as we started to go back to our regular programming, people were like, when are you going to do another one of those events? So we had another opportunity, unfortunate opportunity. Babatunde Olatunji passed away. And when that happened, he had such a huge impact on my life and my understanding of music and the way that I see music. I've been listening to his music since I was in high school. So when he passed, it was kind of an impact on me, and we all agreed that we would do a tribute party to him. So we would play more of the West African, more of the Nigerian, Yoruba sound, and not Yoruba records, but like the traditional Yoruba music. So we were playing more of that and teasing a little bit more of that until it got to a point where like that was a real treat for people, and then they wanted to hear more and more. Now, and also besides that, I was doing Fela Kuti tribute parties, and I started those in like the early 2000s, late 90s, early 2000s, or once a year on the Saturday closest to his birth, which was October 15th, I would do Fela tribute party. So I was doing those, and you had to market those to a different crowd. You couldn't market those always to the standard like crowd that you would market most of your house music parties to, because like Anane said, wasn't always accepted. So you know, it was definitely a game. It was definitely like trying to figure out different ways to promote the events and different ways to, like I said, tease that sound in, so that people would get a little bit more used to it and understand that, like, you know, this is also how can I put it? Like, just because it's not something you're used to doesn't mean that it doesn't fit and can't move your soul, you know?
Yeah.
And also I was listening to an interview the other day with Larry Levan, and Larry Levan was like, well, house music is Afro music. And he broke that down. It's just that because of the North American perspective, it wasn't something that was so blatantly woven into like house music. Aside from that, I started Uhuru Africa in 2008. And the intention for that was to go all in, to not do the once a year things or the once or whatever things. That sound was moving me so much. And around that time, there was so much music coming out. You had like all the musicians before, you know, that time period, 2008, through the 90s, like everyone from Giselle, Carrie Taylor, Masters of Work, and all those guys doing the Afro sound here and there. But now there was more other people starting to join in, and there was so much of that music coming out, and I was so excited to share it with people and to create a space and cultivate a space for not only people to come and listen to that music, but also to feature artists that were producing that music that I loved, and not only just to play their music, but also to bring them to the U.S. To perform for people. So to do that, I'm gonna bring Carlos Mena in this mix. To do that, I've been doing partnered Bembe parties with Carlos for a few years before that, and it was time for another one in Boston. So I said, you know what? And the Bembe parties before that were partnered with the Soul Revival event that I was doing for 14 years. So I wanted to do a standalone Bembe event, see how it went, put my heart into the promotion, and use that as like a barometer of whether or not I could do a regular party in Boston that was just Afro. So brought Carlos Mena in, brought Sabine in, and my partner at the time, Max Pella, live percussion, all that. Did a 4-hour bembe party, 5-hour bembe party, and it went off amazingly. And that was like a little inspiration for me to then just go all in and just be like, I'm going to dedicate all of my time now to cultivating this sound and this, this
business
in the US. Yeah.
Awesome. Can I ask, because we're getting a movement here, can I ask that when you're not speaking, that you put your mics on mute, please, just so that we can cut that off? I'm just hearing a lot of clicking and stuff. Just try to sort that out. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Okay, we're going to go to Carlos Mena. Can you give us an understanding, or from your point of view, of how the development between, let's say, the original house sound, the Detroit, the New York, the Chicago, developed, and how it was infused, or how you saw it when the Afrohouse came about, and how it developed in that way in the North American shores?
Okay, well, I'm not a historian, so I don't know I can do that, but I will tell you, for me, I see Afrohouse now in two parts, and for me, what I'm particularly mostly involved in is African influenced house music. And when you say that, that encompasses almost all house music, right? It's all African influence. But in terms specifically, when people say Afro house, whether it's percussion or certain rhythms, I think about the guys who kind of pioneered that here. Ron Trent, Louis Vega, Joe Clausel, Oshunlade. Those are the guys that play Afro house. To this day, they're still playing Afro house. There may be other things that they play as well, but at their core, it's African influenced music. Antonio Casio, and then you have African house, which is also called Afro house, which is a lot of things that are very popular in Europe, which is also Afro house, but it's very different, right? It's a different vibe, different sounds. There's guitars and other stuff going on. So to me, Afro house is house music. If that answers your question. You're muted.
I'm so used to not being unmuted. My apologies. Right, I'm going to expand on that and ask Doug Gomez, because I know we've had a conversation regarding this as well. So I'm going to ask Doug Gomez. Well, I'm going to get the guys to mute you if they can. The guys in the background to just mute and unmute people as I speak, so it saves them having to try and do it. Doug Gomez, just to give us an expand on that, because I know we've had a conversation regarding Latin and stuff on it, and how that all contributes as well. So please, go ahead.
Right, we had a conversation the last time we spoke. Growing up in New York, I grew up with the Latin and African sounds of salsa, merengue, cumbia, and all that. And then when the house music came along, Latin house, tribal house in the late 80s, early 90s, that's where house music took a more African, Latin-inspired sound. And then, the pioneers, as Carlos said, some of the earlier Joe Clausel's, Ron Trent, they took that sound and they made it more sophisticated. Louis Vega, they did music with live percussion, live instrumentation, and took it to a whole other level. And I feel like that to me is what I consider Afro house to me. But I consider it's all house music, really. What we're talking about is house music. And it's just house music, like Carlos, house music that's African inspired, whether it be Afro, Latin. And that's what I grew up with. And that's what I really don't play too much of the current African house, which is the South African or the Central or the Kenyan. I play a little bit. For me, it has to have soul. House music to me is soulful music, and if it doesn't have soul, I don't really, to me, it's just another vibe that I can't really connect with. But growing up in New York, it's always been about the Latin and the African. And when Body and Soul started, Timmy Regisford, even though people complain, like people mention that some of the soulful heads, I'm a soulful head, complain about the African sounds. More people, it progressed. It's something, I didn't really see too much backlash because a lot of the big DJs, Louis Vega, Timmy Regisford, they were all integrating that African Latin music with the house music. So, but I've seen people complain about Timmy's parties that there's too much African. Back in the day, there was too much African house, and people get used to it. But music has progressed, and I feel that's what I consider African, Afro house, because this is what I grew up with, Afro Latin inspired house music. That's that's what I tend to release on my labels, more Afro, like more soulful music on the Afro Latin tip.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Stan Zeff, being someone that's traveled from the European shores to the American shores and having that knowledge of what happens in Europe and then seeing and aspiring and delivering your kind of format of that in the US. How has that been?
Well, my background is really Caribbean, okay, Caribbean African. Parents are from St. Lucia, and from there, you know, originate from West Africa. So being first generation in England, you're very much influenced from a young age to African music, soca, reggae, all types of music that originated from Africa. It's like literally on a daily basis. I mean, it's your life, you know, your aunties and uncles and everyone is from some part of the Caribbean or from some part of Africa. So those beats and rhythms and whatever, shakers, cow, it's nothing's new to me, you know. So so growing up in England, I was, you know, I remember as a young boy going to a Rastafarian party, the 12 tribes, and it was just a drum circle, and you know, you had about 20 drums in there. And everyone was just beating the drums and just chanting and beating and chanting. And I was just, from then, I was just drawn into the whole concept of African influence music. So, and that stayed with me forever. Coming over to the US, I actually, at first, I actually missed that organic feel of African dance. Because you know, although we call it Afrohouse or whatever, African influence, to me it was we danced to African organic beats. And when I first came over here, I missed that. I missed that because when I started going to house music parties, they were it was nice. You know, it wasn't as raw as I experienced back in England, only because in England I was closer to the original sounds, you know. So coming over here, it was nice, and then I was pleased to start hearing music from like as Carlos said, like Louis Vega and Joe Clausel and those and they incorporated those original sounds within the more sophisticated and production that we have today. Thankfully, within a few years, I got to know different people, and I reclaimed my origin and found people that were playing the original and organic sounds, you know, through Orisha or through Rastafarianism or through straight African people from Ghana, South Africa, from the middle of Africa, wherever, you know. So it exists. You just got to find it, you know.
Awesome, thank you. JoJo Flores, in your opinion, the African house that was discussed by Carlos and Doug,
yeah,
how are you guys experiencing that in sort of the north of Canada, or in Canada, sorry, I should say?
Well, listen, Montreal is very New York influenced, right? So a lot of the DJs that were coming up back in the day we looked up to a lot of the New York DJs like Louis, like Morales, even Terry Chandler. We didn't mention Jerome Sydenham, but he was a big player for Afrohouse, I find, because his label Ibadan used to put out a lot of Afrohouse music,
Yeah.
and then you know, Africanism with what's it? Who had Africanism?
Wasn't
Gregory and Yellow, no? Anyway, they played a big role in sort of not commercializing, but making it popular with a lot of that DJ Gregory stuff in the the 2000s. You know, I
Mhm.
mean, listen, Montreal is there's a lot of West Indians in Montreal, a lot of French Africans as well. So we had a lot of West Indian influence, like with the Trinidadians with calypso, and the Jamaicans with reggae, and we never had a lot of like, you know, there's some. I mean, Bunny Mac was like sort of Afro Latin. I guess Afro Latin guys, no, had a calypso vibe to it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, with my party, we used to play. We didn't play a lot of Afro house, but there were a lot of Afro Latin rhythms, like Carlos mentioned, Antonio Ocasio, a lot of the tribal wind stuff, you know. And then even guys like Danny Tenaglia, when he started Tribal America, there was some stuff there that sort of crossed over to Afro house. I mean, it was tribal house, but I think Afro house is the more soulful version of tribal house, I guess you'd say. But I find a lot of parties in Montreal and Toronto played Afro house music, but not 70% of the night. It would be like, you know, 30% of the night you would have sort of Afro house music. So
yeah, definitely.
But now like there's parties that are full on Afro house parties, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. That guy was Bob Sinclair. That's what I was thinking as well. Shout out FNX for pointing it out.
And shout out to Bodhi. Bodhi's checking us out as well.
Yeah,
FNX,
shout out Bodhi. Shout out
Apple Soul. Yeah.
Yes, and Stan's joined us back. Right. So let me ask you this question, because there seems to be some, would you say, with the type of Afro house or the African house that's proposed, that is now Afro house? Because let's be quite frank, there was a number of different genres of Afro house. Because the Portuguese Kuduro time, which is much faster, much more dancers type. Then you've got the slower, more let's say Ibiza black coffee type Afro house, but it's all underneath one umbrella. How has that been fitting in North America? I mean, how does it sit there in North America? And I'm going to ask three: Anane, Casa, and I'm going to go back to JoJo as well on that one as well. So if we go with Carlos this time, so Anane doesn't get first picked all the time.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. I mean, it's bifurcating into different areas. You know, our good friend Bodhi's on here, right? He does African house music, right? But it's part of Afro house, but it's very different. And you've got, you know, the guys in South Africa that have seen, you know, the success of what some of the guys have played, and they're all making this music that's more either techie or more Balearic or what have you. They're going in different directions. If you look at I think the last 4 or 5 releases on Ochem Zanzi, which is our South African label, it's all straight deep house. Like you wouldn't think that came from South Africa. It's deep house. So it's moving in different directions, and the way it works here is, you know, the DJs that play a certain genre are going to play that genre, right? If they're going to play certain kinds of songs all day, that's what they're going to play. If there's guys that are only going to play deep, they're only going to play deep. Some of us bounce around from genre to genre, so I'll play the different styles of Afro house, and you know, if it's something that moves me or connects with me, I'll bring it into my repertoire. But I think it's all popular to some extent. I think the real music aficionados get tired of hearing the same thing over and over. But I love that there's diversity and that, you know, things are cross-pollinating. It's fantastic.
Yeah, but that cross-pollination is what we kind of need, isn't it? I mean, that's what music is. It, you know, it borrows, it melds, it then brings it out into something, and it processes into something new. What was Afro House 10, 12, 15 years ago is not what we listen to as African or Afro House now. What would you say, Anane?
Agreed. I mean, but that's what evolution is called, right? So evolution is exploring and growing, and different interpretations, different inspirations. What is the youth looking at? What is the youth listening to? What do they want to say? So, you know, music is music at the end of the day, and I think we can all agree on that. Music is a feeling, it's a soul, right? And depending what your personal preferences is what you would lean towards to play. And I think that's the beauty of a place like New York City. I'm not an original New Yorker, but I came to New York really young. And so early 90s, going to clubs and listening. In one night, you could listen to everything. So in that being said, in this evolution of house music and all the different, cross-pollination, if you say, of what is happening, is a beautiful thing. It's preference, really, what one preference is. I started Nulu Movement for that reason. Nulu Movement is taking the two brands, Nulu Electronic and Nulu Music, bringing them together in one night and doing a party where, depending on who the guest is, one of the artists coming from the labels to play is open to play what he feels without there being a specific sound that needed to be played. And so taking, having a residency in New York and seeing, New York City is for dancers. New York City, you go to clubs and you go to dance. Mm-hmm. And that's the beauty of, I think, being in New York. Whereas when I would take Nulu Movement to Europe, let's say, or play, in Italy or in Ibiza, it's a different thing, but people are open to it. And like, I think like Carlos was saying, a music lover is open to hearing something new. And mm-hmm. So what we also have to agree that a younger generation, and we can go back and mention all the pioneers who have been playing it and who are that. But at the same time, there's a generation behind us as well. And they are listening, and they now have new heroes, that they're listening to, and they have their interpretation of what they want to express and what is music for them. So it's not necessarily a right or wrong. This is it. This is not it. This is the sound. It's embracing music and being open to what each one has to give. And I think as a label owner, and the beauty of a label owner is putting out music that you personally feel, like I said in the beginning, for me, this was just, it's an extension of who I am and where I come from. So it just happened that way. When I started, it wasn't about, okay, I want to do Afro music. It was just, this is the music that moved me, and listening to the demos that came in, this is what spoke to me. And so putting it out there and seeing what the feedback has been and how huge it's gotten, it's amazing. It's really, really a beautiful thing. And I think it's always being open and accepting and supporting this young generation that's coming up and giving them a platform to express themselves as well. That's for me, in having a label, that's what it's all about. Definitely.
Thank you for that. Coming on to your point, it's definitely about the younger generation. Yes, we've had those that those that have gone before, and the legends that are in the game, and we salute them and give them their massive props. But JoJo Flores, how do you reach the younger community coming up? How do we introduce the music that we have now, or the music coming out now, with what was the older music, and mix it to, and then bring that new youthful roots generation that we need to, let them put their roots down and grow from the earth into the new sound? That's
a good question. Well, here's the thing. Well, you're involved with the Offering God Soul Festival, right?
The next one, yes, I am.
Yes. So I think being able to play Afro house music or house music on these platforms like Twitch, like Instagram Live, like Facebook, that right there introduces the music to a lot of younger audiences, especially Twitch, because a lot of young people are on Twitch. It's a gamer site that's basically overtaken by DJs now. I think I think using social media is a great way to promote it. I think doing these parties and allowing the younger up and coming DJs, to give them a platform to sort of play their interpretation of Afro house is also a cool way to do it. It's just exposing the music in different ways, like social media, when we start doing live events as well again. And a lot of kids are into festivals, so why not do an Afro house festival,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I think those are great ways to sort of introduce it to the younger audiences.
Awesome. Make sure you do check out the Got Soul Weekender. When is it the next one you're doing live?
March 20th, 21st. And you see, here's the cool thing, right? So we take guys like Jimster, who's not known for Afro house, but will produce or remix certain tracks and give it that Afro house vibe. So we're gonna get a guy like Jimster to play Afro house, you know? And then we got a guy like Gibril Sisi, who has like 1.2 million followers on Instagram. He was a professional ex-footballer, and he plays Afro house. So we're getting guys like that to sort of reach out to their following and introduce Afro house music to them. So I think having you guys on board, having Gibril on board, having guys like Jimster, booking guys that don't normally play Afro house or are not known for Afro house, sort of introduces the music to different audiences, you know?
Yeah, it's definitely. And we're looking forward to that. Make sure you check that out. Check out the Drums Radio website because it's on there as well. And I know you're planning big things. We're looking forward to shouts out to Body on that as well with yourself. Definitely looking forward to that. Shouts out to Luca Rebels. I've seen you pop in there.
Oh, Carlos is on the bill too for the next one.
Carlos is sitting there quietly and not saying anything. I'm on that. All right. So the evolution of the sound. Because let's look across the continents. Let's look at Africa. South Africa being and let's look specifically at South Africa. South Africa being the sound that everyone's sort of copying or coming out of. Most of the Afro house coming out of that arena, and some of the producers, most of the arenas. Shouts out to the Moroccan guys, CL Assad's, FNX, Mr. ID, and those guys as well, of course, because I know they've been doing big things as well. I don't want to leave you out, and all the rest of the guys in Africa. But we're going to specifically look at that kind of South African field, and also I want to look at the Kuduro, the Portuguese side, because sometimes that's kind of ignored with the English-speaking side of stuff. It kind of gets waylaid, even though the dancers really love that in the European and that side. We're kind of like, it kind of gets waylaid. So how do we now, and I'm going to open this to everybody, if everyone can get involved in this and just, put your viewpoints forward, how we now put that together and express it towards what the North Americans are feeling at currently, because I know it's a thing where the North Americans are the major genres, R&B, hip hop, are so enormous there. Sometimes it's difficult to get the sound into ears or onto the radio stations because they're kind of like, well, this is our sound, we created this, blah blah blah. How do we change it? How do we develop? I'd like to start with Adam.
So yeah, I mean, it's a really interesting question. And coming from my perspective, and I might be not the right person to answer this because all those sounds speak to me, and I play all of those sounds in my sets. Therefore, hoping to help, introduce that music to new communities, new people who wouldn't listen to it before, who were only listening to the standard house genres, soulful house, etc. I can't really speak to the radio question there either. I'm not really involved in radio except doing some sets and guest appearances here and there. But I think, let me just take a step back to what we were speaking just a second ago about, because that question that you raised previous was brought up in a panel that I did at ADE one year. And actually Bodhi was on that panel. Shimza was on that panel. And Shimza brought up a really good point about the concept of Afro house, what it is to some people and what it is to Africans. And of course, we're talking about the North American perspective right now, but it really opened my eyes to something interesting because he's like, a lot of the South African artists right now are starting to produce music that is not 100% filled with drums. That's not, doesn't have the African vocals, that doesn't have that kind of elements in it. And he was like, I'm an African artist. All these people are African artists. And this is a sound that we're feeling right now. And we're producing this sound and playing this sound. Is that not Afro house? Is that not African house music? And it really was trying to help us understand and or pose a question that he was still trying to understand, which was what really constitutes Afro house. Mm-hmm. When we were talking about that, also going full circle with the younger kids, because a lot of the younger kids who were coming up in South Africa and neighboring countries were also doing their own research and going back and looking at older house music. And then there's certain elements of that spoke to some people. So that was a little bit of an influence of old school New York or other US house music producers, and labels like Ibdan, etc. that were now influencing young African producers. And then that sound, so is that even a full circle, right? Of like the house music sound that we were used to in the US now being investigated retroactively by these younger artists and then having that influence them. So it's a really interesting thing. And I think it was Anane that said, like, it is really an evolution. It is and what happens in history, we always repeat, you know.
Happened, yeah.
Yeah, so it's a really interesting idea or theory. In terms of like the kururo and like what which was really the new evolution of Angolan or Portuguese influenced Afrohouse relative to the kuduro root was really introduced to me by Jeff and Sylvie and those guys that were doing, which really blew my mind. I was listening to some kuduro like back in the day, and it was a really fresh perspective for me to see them doing it. I thought it was really great. I'm sorry, what was the other part of that question?
I believe it was, how do we develop, and what do we do to develop and make the sound larger in that instance then, using those roots?
Yeah, I mean, just keep doing what we're doing. Just keep embracing that sound and helping give space for that to cultivate and become whatever it is. As long as it's moving me, and as long as it's something that I feel is inspiring and going to continue to move me, I'm going to continue to play it and create space for it.
Awesome. I was on that panel as well, as think. That's where we first met.
That's right. Yeah, I apologize.
That's all right. Yeah. I'm going to go Anane, because I know the Portuguese element strikes rhythms with yourself. How do you see that? It's sometimes under-recognized in the English-speaking community. And how would we develop that and join it more in?
Honestly, I'm not so much into analyzation and analyzing what needs to, you know what I mean? Is there a solution? Is there a mathematical equation to what is supposed to happen? No, there is not. Are we supposed to say, let's take this sound and what do we have to do it to mix it with this sound so that this group of people can listen to? We would be sitting here for days trying to figure it out. Music is music. Influences are influences. We are all influenced by so much. And that's the beauty of art. That's the beauty of creation. That's the beauty of music, producing, signing, partying, curating, whatever, cooking, putting a recipe together. That's the beauty of it all. And I think it's important to leave it open and without putting so much, all this analyzation. Well, if it came from here, but why isn't this sound? Listening. At the end of the day, it's music. Does it resonate with you? Does it make you want to share it with someone else? Does the sound that I'm listening to, this 22-year-old from South Africa or from Nigeria or from where have you, does this demo that he sent me speak to me so much that I want to send it to a Louis Vega or I want to send it to a Shimzo Coffee to play it because I feel it's so beautifully made that it's going to move a crowd? That's what it's about. That's what music is about, and that's what all of this is about. And if I can jump in and say how important that we need diversity and inclusion in this business. and I don't mean just musically, I just mean from artists and producers and DJs. When I see myself as the only female on a panel, or when I see so many panels missing a female representation, and not 1%, really speaks to me. And it's so important that we start including more, because I know it's not just me out here representing and doing and trying to knock down walls and trying to say something and trying to be heard. There's so many women out there. And so a panel of 5 should be equally, if there's 5 men, there should be 5 women. If there's 3 men, there should be 3 women. And that is so important that we get over this, because I don't want to say especially in the house, our scene, because I was reading a very interesting article in just music, in the music in general, and what the numbers are and songwriters and what's on the charts. And it is so important. And I think now is the time that, every time I have this opportunity to be able to speak about it, I will speak about it, because that's what I'm here to do, is as well as put music out there. I feel that it's become cliquish. There's a lot of click. And so when you become cliquish and it's, just groups and groups, it excludes a lot. Instead of being inclusive, and I'm all about including, and as much as I can. Let creators create. What I can say is what I do, knowing that what me having this platform and what I say will resonate with someone. I have a responsibility. I look as my job and what I do and my voice as a responsibility, not just because, I want to be on top of the Afro charts. I'm looking to sign 100 records and bombard the chart. No. I have a responsibility in this, and I take this job and what I do in both my labels and the brand as a responsibility for a younger generation of artists and producers who want to reach their dreams, and it's important that we start including more women in festivals. It's important. It's not just one. There isn't just one female DJ out there that is, part of a lineup of 12 men. It's not two. It's equal, and it needs to be addressed, and it needs to be talked about, and it needs to change.
I have a question, Anane. If there are 5 of us, who would you choose as 5 women to be on this panel?
I would choose Toshi.
Off the top of your head.
Toshi, Sabine. I would choose Kamala. I would choose Natasha Diggs. I would choose my girl Shonda Trent. There's 5 right there, and there's so many more. So many. That's just off the top of my head. And these are all women who are actively working, and there's also women who are, under the radar. And so it's important, and it's so important that we see that happening. I don't want to say I hate to be that one, but it looks like I have to be that one. And so therefore I started ananesworld.org, a women's representation organization to make changes, and to speak about it, and to have this platform, because it's so important. And we're, it's bringing awareness. That's all I can, because I found myself asking, well, what can I do? What can I do? How can I make change? What can I do? Well, I can bring awareness, and I can speak on it every chance that I get. And I think by bringing awareness and calling it out, you know what I mean? Like, if I get booked for a big festival, I reach out to the promoter and say, hey, I see that I'm the only female, or there's only 3 of us. Well, why isn't there more? And so awareness is first, and agreeing.
Totally in agreement.
And so I just want to piggyback on what Anane said, because it goes back to your question about bringing the music together. And, all these issues are cultural, right? And so, Doug's making music, incredible music on his label. And, I would say probably one of the places where it resonates the most is in New York. Because
I'm a fan.
Yeah, me too. Because his music is influenced by who he is and his background and his culture, and is going to resonate with those people. So the Kuduro sound, works great in Portugal. And, guys like Bodhi know how to bring that into a set when he's playing in New York. He knows what elements work. He's not going to play a Kuduro set at a house party. But it's completely cultural. And so each part of the world is going to have their own little bit to it. And I think naturally things will migrate and cross-pollinate, as I said earlier. So it's completely cultural. And so we're in this patriarchic society, and we all have to make an effort. I'm going to publicly say again what I always say. Every one of my parties since last year, I've made a conscious decision to have women on the bill. There has to be a woman on the bill, or there's no party. And I challenge everybody to do that. JoJo, Adam, anybody who throws parties, there should be a woman on the bill every time.
We've been doing that for sure.
That's great.
Yeah, same. We've been pushing that as well here in London, and I'm gonna speak quickly on this because I thank you for bringing it up. It's a very, very important thing. There's two. I mean, we've been pushing the women's DJ professionals that are in this industry a lot on Hit Drums Radio. For those who don't know, it's run by a lady as well. But in this instance, we also have. Like next month, we're doing a full panel. The Afrohouse conversation is exactly what you've just discussed. We're going to have a full panel of women discussing what you've discussed. We really want you back on that panel, Anane, next month, please. So I'll get the connections to sort that out. But yeah, next month you're going to have a full panel of women discussing every single issues, from the dark ones that people try to hide under the rock to whatever the light, fluffy stuff everybody wants to, but I want it to be all out there, and that's what we want. And that will be the 1%. I think I'm going to be the only male on it. Maybe not. I may let another lady take my place just to show, because, and I'm not going to just keep doing that. What I want to do with these conversations is keep having women on there, 2 women, 3 men, and showing there is more in it. We're doing a lot of interviews. We're bringing them more forward. A lot of people don't know that there's women out here doing it, and they're like, oh, well, there's not that much. And I'm like, no, there is. You just have to look and give them the opportunity. Just like you would give a young DJ the opportunity to come onto your decks and say, okay, rock the party, and you'd be like, all right, give the females the same chance. They've been battling out here for ages. People like Sin City, Jackie Queens, names that DJs that, DJs and performers. You mentioned Toshi, there's Lizwee, there's I'm going to start rolling them all off. There's many out there, but I'm just saying that they're out there. We need to actually show more, but we also need platforms and the people like yourselves and gatekeepers to do something about it, rather than just saying or speaking on a panel or now and again. You have to do something. You have to show that you're doing it, not just speak on it and then it doesn't happen. We have to do something about it. Thank you so much for making that point. Next month, come back and let loose, let rip. I want people to feel the pain. Yeah, I want you really to do that. We're looking for more females to join the panel and get involved. We really want it to shine a light on what's being discussed and not being discussed, I should say, out there. Yeah, we want to. So please get in contact with Drums Radio if you want to get involved. I'm going to keep moving it forward.
Can I just add something?
Yeah, sure.
To the previous question you had about exposing the music to the masses.
I was coming to you with that question now. So yeah, go ahead.
Us as record label owners and producers, we all have our songs that we love. I'm a soulful house head, but as the record label owners and producers, it's up to us to expand the music to others by collaboration, producing with having singers from other, working with artists from other countries. Like on my label, I have Nuzu. She's from South Africa, and I release music from South African, from Morocco. So us as record label owners, we have to expand on the music, not just our personal taste. I love the music. I love everything I put out, but I also put out other styles of music that I love as well. And I think that's key to exposing the music to other people. Like Carlos says, he has his other label and they're putting out deep house. And he also said that the music I do resonates more with people in New York, but I'm also releasing music from other people from other countries on my label that will hopefully resonate with us as well worldwide, and as well as people in New York. So just working in collaborations with other people from all parts of the world, I think will help expand the music even more.
Yeah, the same again, the development of the industry. So, okay, let's talk about developing the industry. I mean, developing this, because we find there's a lot of record labels, fewer managers or people building the process of that. I'm going to mute your mic there, Stan. Sorry, I've got to mute you. Fewer people expressing the build of the industry. What do we need? Do we need more people managing? Do we need more people who are kind of like doing the other things other than record labels? Do we need people who are lawyers, people who understand the music business a bit more to grow as a community? Is the genre, because the genre is still small or the beginning? I mean, the people here are legends in their own rights, as far as I'm concerned. Anyone who wants to put your comments in, and I'll dispute it with you. But in this instance, how do we grow? Because lots of us have been here for 10, 15 years, so such. How do we grow? How do we progress? And that's what I want to try to get out. What do we do to, go ahead.
I think what is important is also branding. I think branding sort of has a big role to play. Like, let's say, for instance, techno music. I like the way they manage and brand their labels or their artists. I think we need more of that with not just Afro house, soulful house, deep house. You know, I find a lot of labels or artists are sort of miss the branding aspect of it and don't pay too much importance to it. You know, and I think like Adam comes from that background. You know, and I think image is very important. You know, we have to create it doesn't have to be artistic, but it has to resonate with people that are into design, into art, into like the tastemakers. Like the tastemakers, if they look at a CD cover or artwork, they'll look at it and they'll say, wow, this is interesting. This not just the music resonates, the artwork resonates. You know, like all the branding is such an important part of it. And I think Adam agrees with me, right, Adam?
Yeah, 100%. Of course, like not a lot of people know, but I do come from that background. I did go to art school. I've been working in advertising for, man, I think my first gig in that space was like 94 or something like that. I've worked on projects for major companies, Fortune 50, Fortune 500 companies, from AT&T to GM to Bank of America, et cetera. So I do that.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I come from that kind of a background, like corporate advertising work. So it's easy for me to translate that through to what I do. If you look at the history of the parties that I've been involved in, even going back to this party called Celebrate Life that I was doing in Boston, that started in '98, and we ran it through to 2000. Really incredible party. Part of that was the branding. With Uhuru Africa, my current project, it is all about the branding. It is all about the complete presence in the package. And I think that that's what helps make it acceptable to a wider audience. Like it's just about the presentation. It's about that initial thing. Because if you're promoting your event in a space where sound is not available, you need something to grab someone's eye. And that's an important part of it. The way that your logo looks, only using 2 fonts on a flyer as opposed to 12, so that it doesn't look like a big mess. Those things are really important, I think, in my opinion, my perspective. I'm really, I have a lot I don't want to talk too much on that. I have a lot to say. I'm really honored also to have been seen as someone to help people with that. Like I've helped JoJo with Got Soul. I've helped Carlos with Bembe. Stan with Tambor and some aspects, and it's really an important thing. And I don't know what more I can say about it. Yeah,
but is that, it's taking what you've just said there, and let's apply that to now the record labels and the releases and stuff like that. Because I think, and maybe I'm wrong here, and I might get murdered here by saying this from the record label owners, but I do think sometimes we're just releasing lots and lots of music, but we're not developing artists and building brands around the artists. Like a hip hop artist, they wouldn't be just released. They would be released with a package. You'd get the videos, you'd get the artwork, you'd get the stories, the journalistic aspects, all that stuff put in. I found with Afrohouse, it's just kind of released. And I'm not suggesting that it's not because it might be a budgetary situation, but we can do lesser videos or lesser designs that that don't cost too much, but just the development of that, which hopefully will then develop the industry. I'm going to go.
That's finances. Those are finances. A hip hop artist, when you get signed to a label, you're locked in with a label. Out here, this is the Wild Wild West. You sign an artist, you put a release out. The next day, there's 5 labels reaching out to that artist. Would you like to release on my label? That's how it works here. Mm-hmm. It is the Wild Wild West. There's no rules. So when a hip hop artist, R&B, whatever, gets signed to a label, they're signed and locked in for a few years, and they're given, their upfront money that takes care of them. And this is what they're dedicated to for the next 3, 4, 5 albums, depending on what the deal is. In this
our
genre,
space.
in our space, it is not, because for many reasons. Not that we don't want to, not that I wish to help cultivate an artist and watch him grow. It's just that financially you can't say, I want to sign you, but you're committed to me for the next 5 years or the next 5 albums. we try to have some kind of loyalty. You try to work with someone and say, well, you know, this is what I can offer you in this space and help you to grow. But at the same time, you can't expect that, you know. And luckily, I've had few artists on my labels that I continue to work with that are very loyal and will stay. But in our genre, it would be amazing to have those fundings. It would be amazing to have that. But we know the money we make isn't in the selling of music. The money we're making is on our hustle, working out there, gigging and helping that. Well, at least for me, you know, I can speak for myself. To sustain what I do is by being out and working and performing and DJing and have you. And so that helps to sustain the label. So as much as we would want to, you know, I don't think there's I don't want to say loyalty, but everyone is looking for their moment. Everyone is looking for that moment to shine. Everyone is looking for that deal. That's why a lot of artists, you will see their releases on 20 labels, 10 labels, back to back, all simultaneously. Right. And what I try to tell young artists, I know for me as an artist, not as a label owner, but as an artist, I stayed with one label. I stayed in one place, even if the offers came from other places, because that's where just I felt my loyalty was to that label. And not to mention I was with one of the best. So side note, but it's remaining in one place and to grow. If you, as an artist, if you're looking to be with your favorite label and you're sending demos out, I mean, I get demos and on the BCC, you know, or on the CC, there's like 50 other labels. On the demo, I'm like, okay, listen, first of all, you know what I mean? As a young artist, and if there's any young artists out there, producers who are listening, my advice to you is take time to understand and know where you're sending your music to, know the label, know who's on the label, what the label puts out, who the owner of the label is. And, you know, it takes time to go one by one. But there's also a thing called BCC. So just, you know, so you can BCC so it doesn't look crazy either. Right. And really, you know, one of the other things is that, you know, we don't go to school for this. Okay. There's no school. There's no at university. There is no classroom on house music 101, house music 102, and graduating and knowing how to maneuver, you know, through music.
Yeah.
So we're kind of, we all do it for the love and grow and learn as we go. And of course, some of us have backgrounds in other fields, you know, that help with this. And some of us just went through the university of life that has prepared us for where we are now and gone through all the courses and passed some and failed some, passed some and failed. And here we are today. Mm-hmm. So it's taking time to learn. But today there's way too much information on the internet. There's Google where you can research and come with some knowledge. There's no reason why anyone can't have some sort of knowledge or understanding of what they need to do, of being able to look at a contract, of being able to understand, you know, the branding aspect of it and knowing your logo and building your brand and representing your brand. You are your brand. When you step out there, you represent your brand. And so how do you represent your brand and what is it that you speak of? And so these are things that are really important for us to acknowledge and put out there.
Okay, cool.
Anane, I would also add that you should put your name and the name of the track in the email, no?
Just a slight point there.
Yeah, but I mean, the one thing we have to recognize is, you know, and I don't know how things are in Europe. I know in South Africa, house music is commercial music, right?
Yeah.
Here, it's underground music. We've made a conscious decision that we're going to put out music that only a few hundred people or 1,000, 2,000 people are going to get to hear. You know, if you're lucky enough to have Louis play it on BLS, and, you know, 5,000, 10,000 people will hear it. And some other underground shows across the country, but there's no real opportunity for the music we're signing to cross over and be a commercial success unless you consciously say that that's what you're striving for, and you write a song with a hook and it's structured a certain way and create a radio edit that you know is going to get played on the radio. But so to answer your question, when that song comes along, yes, I will pay for a video. I will fly someone to go shoot a video in Puerto Rico or that kind of stuff, because I know that there's an opportunity for this to be a commercial success. But most of the songs we sign are for us to play in the club, to get played on different podcasts, what have you. There's no money in it, so it doesn't make sense to pour thousands of dollars behind something. The other thing is that the way we're structured, the artists are creating individual songs, right? Maybe an EP. It's not the same as in the pop world where someone puts a project together. There's no, and we're not given the opportunity to put a project together because the project does not have an opportunity to be a commercial success. Right? If I sign Doug to do an album for Ocha, I know it's going to be something that's going to reach just us. You know what I mean? I'm not going to see it on MTV unless he comes to me and says, Carlos, I got this crazy idea, and I hear the hook and the whole thing is a commercial hit, or he's got some commercial artist on the song. If Doug signs a song for his label and he's got Shakira singing on it, I'm sure he'll spend money on a video because it's gonna be a success. So we have to be honest about what we're doing, right? We're not creating commercial music. This is underground music. When you say crossover earlier, you said, what do we do to cross over Afrohouse to get on the radio? You got to take a step back. We don't have house on the radio, let alone Afrohouse. It's a different world here in the States.
Okay, so right, go ahead.
This goes back to when I used to work at the label in the 90s. The problem was, why are the producers the artists and not the actual singers? This was the issue back in the 90s. This actually started in the late 80s when house music took off. That's when disco died. I think that the artist, the singer as the artist died. It was all about the producer. So that was the issue back in the 90s that we had. Well, who's the artist? Is it the producer? Well, no, it's the singer, but the producers turn to be the artist on a genre of music that doesn't have no commercial
viability. Yeah.
Right. So you can't put money back on and the producers, most of them had no face. You send in a demo, you don't know you don't know what they look like. Commercial music goes based on looks.
Yeah.
Sex sells too. So it's
Yeah, but then once again,
house music in general.
Yeah, but then once again, and to the point, I actually, because this is the North America's itching, I should have remembered, house music isn't a genre that is played on the radio in North America, and it's something that you do, and I beg to you, and I respect that. For apologizing if I offended in that instance, but in the instance of growing artists and developing artists, as I said back there, I still think there's opportunities are missed. Or is it the case of the gatekeepers or individuals have to create something because we do want this to grow? At the end of the day, we're doing this for the love, but we do want it to grow as well.
No, we agree with you, but also some of our labels don't have the manpower to do so. Like we don't have a department that sort of takes care of you. We don't have a marketing department. We don't have we do everything, and that's the tough part, right? So we don't have the manpower to do it.
It all goes back to that there's no real money coming in. We're not selling commercial records. When there's a new artist, absolutely, we want to work with them and help them develop their sound. We help them with their mixes and we give them ideas and all that good stuff. But we know that tomorrow they can go to Anane and sign the next record to Anane. They're not committed, or vice versa. So it's a fine line we have to walk because we have limited resources.
Right.
I'll give you a perfect example of an artist who was kind of smart. There's a guy named Koflo who makes incredible music, terrific producer. He came to me and he said, I want to release all my music on Ocha. Going forward, anytime I do something new, I'm gonna give it to you first. And we built a great relationship. He's now the A&R for the label. Like he runs the label basically. But he, you know, and we've had a couple artists do that where they think, you know, if I commit to these guys, they're probably going to be more willing to invest in me as well. And that's how it has to be, because no one's making commercial records where we're going to make a ton of money.
Yeah, totally. Yes.
Yeah, it was really speaking on that, and the concept of, you know, or the North American perspective of what we're talking about here. It was really interesting when I started to see some of these like some of Coffee's videos that were coming out, and some of the stuff on the like DJ Fresh Oskido's label coming out with like really highly produced videos, really like a lot of push behind them. I was like, wow, these guys have their stuff together. Like, what's going on over there? Then my first trip to South Africa, I got off of the plane before I even got to my bags. Walking past 3 shops in the airport, you hear house music coming, and I was like, man, what is going on? So I went into one shop to get a bottle of water, and Anane Vega, Brought the Sunshine in My Life, is playing on the speakers, and I was like, is this a DJ mix? What do you? She's like, I don't know, that's whatever's on the radio. I'm like, wait, what? And then get off, and I went to a record store, and they have top 10 right when you walk in the door. And it was everybody, DJ Vinny DiVici, you know, Coffee, Kula, everybody. And I was like, oh, so this is your top 10 house? Where's your top 10 of the country? No, this is the top 10 of the country. And I'm like, wait, so Justin Bieber and Beyonce is over here in the everything else section, and they're not even in the top 10 selling records in the country right now? And that totally flipped my perspective of how it was being received there. The money that was being spent on it there, and it was completely different than what it was here. It was like, you know, pop music over there. So with that pop music, with those selling records, you get the funding to be able to do the videos that, you know, we would love to be able to do, but just, you know, don't have the funding or resources for. Yeah. And that goes a little bit into the branding that we were talking about too. Like with the branding, I mean, sometimes you have to pay someone to design the album covers, to you know, get you a really nice looking logo and put together that brand package. It will help tie everything together for you. And, you know, that takes resources too.
Definitely. Looking at that situation, then, do you think that the development of some of the other genres of music that have for us in Europe, especially the Afrobeats, has really impacted on the Afrohouse market, in that some instances that what you're hearing as Afrobeats now, and I have this conversation with large Afrobeat DJs and stuff for later right now, I'm saying some of the sounds that you are doing is what was originally a South African house sound or SA house sound, and you just borrowed that stuff and put the Nigerian language or the language on top of it. Has that impacted yet? I don't know, because sometimes it doesn't impact us quite as suddenly, but has that impacted in the US currently?
I find, because I play at not underground spaces like the Four Seasons or these high-end boutique type of places.
Yeah.
And you know, their version of Afrobeat is different than my version of Afrobeat. But if I can incorporate Afrohouse, it's not foreign to them anymore. It's sort of like, oh, this is just a faster version of what we listen to. So I think the music is heading in the right direction for sure, because, you know, you have the Black Coffees, you have the South African sound that's sort of penetrated North America in such a strong way. You know, it's like a lot of people are sort of hip to Afrohouse music now, as opposed to like 5 years ago. They didn't even know a lot of these artists, right? So I find that in those spaces is a great place to sort of promote Afrohouse, deep house, soulful house, because they're getting used to that sound, and they don't even know it.
We'll try and bring Stan in quickly. Stan, how has the cousin of, or the little sister or brother of Afrohouse, Amapiano, affected the market space there?
Sorry, so I must apologize first of all, because for some reason my app just keeps closing all the time. Every time I'm on and I'm hearing a good conversation, my app just closes out all the time. So I must apologize for that, and my fingers are crossed that I don't get dropped out again. But you know, concerning the whole Afro scene, I think that, you know, I was just listening to what everyone had to say, and everyone's You know, everyone's got some really good points. From my point, I feel that what we need is structure in terms of an organization, because our content's there. Everyone releases great music. We can't fault our content. In fact, when you compare our content to all other types of Afro genres or hip hop or mainstream top 20 stuff, our content is far more better, well produced, better mastered, everything. So our content is far beyond a lot of other genres out there. I feel that where we're actually failing is that we don't have organization. Which reminds me of a friend of mine who was into indie music about 20 years ago. And he used to pack his team into a small van and just drive from college campus to college campus, gigging. And he had a team of guys. So he had the band, and he also had a guy who used to print CDs and print them up, and that's all he did was sell CDs. There was another guy, or his girlfriend, all she did was T-shirts.
Yeah.
So, you know, and in our scene, I think we've got too many chiefs and not enough Indians. I think Anane touched on that earlier, where, you know, you could be working with someone one day, and the next day he comes to you and says, I want to be a DJ. He was like, and you throw your hands up in the air, and he was like, that's not what we need. You know, what we need are people who are going to concentrate on, like Adam was saying, on artwork. We need someone who's going to be concentrating on management, someone who's going to be on promotion and social media. And right now, we're wearing all the hats. You know, where, you know, it's like with the Tambo brand on social media, on e-blasting, producing, do you know what I'm saying? And it wears you out, and you can't be effective in any one area to grow effectively and substantially if there aren't a team of people that are helping you. The labels that do have a team are the labels that are doing it better, whatever genre you're in, you know. And I think that for us to grow more, we need to start having people joining our teams that don't want to be a producer and don't want their names on the cover of a track or whatever, you know, come up to me, I want to start producing, can you teach me? You know, it's like, you're supposed to be, you know, doing social media. The same love that we have for making music and putting it out there, we need people on our team who have that same love, that just want to stay in, just want to build the organization and make it work, you know, because I've seen it with other genres. You know, people have teams, you know. It's like a friend of mine, he says, he came to see me the other day, oh yeah, I've got a creative director now and she's doing this and that, and you know, he's jumping leaps and bounds, you know. And I feel that, as I said before, our music can't be faulted. It's not our music. Yeah, we have one of the best genres out there, hands down. You know, it's really our ability to organize and not people in who. Am I still here?
Yeah, you're here.
Am I still with you?
Yeah, keep going.
Bringing people in who do it for the love just as much as we do it. Without being interested in being seen, you know.
Okay, great words. Thank you very much, and I hope you do stay in now. Yeah. We really wanted you here as well for the full conversation. Right. So I've got a number of questions all jumping in my head, and I wanted to keep this concise, but I may expand it just a little because of the time. I wanted to discuss. There's a question that's come out. I'm going to go to the question, which is: would collabs of Afrobeat artists with Afrohouse producers artists help to develop the USA market space or develop the industry or genre?
I would say yes, and it's part of what, like, Bodhi's doing that now. Like, Bodhi's worked with Davido, you know, like it's so, we started to touch on it a second ago. I'm so excited about the explosion of Afro beats. Like, I was waiting for that to happen for so long. As someone, like I said earlier, I was listening to early Nigerian music when I was in like high school, which led to Fela, which, you know, on and on. And it made sense to me that sound would develop eventually, especially with the deep roots that Fela created in Nigeria. And it's interesting that it didn't happen sooner. Nigeria was really, for so many decades, looking at America and UK specifically at what they were doing in terms of music and what was popular then. So they were really stuck in this like hip hop and reggae space. And that's the music that a lot of those artists over the few decades previous to the emergence of Afrobeats was focused on. And with what we were producing here and doing here in the US and starting to see what other countries in Africa were doing, it really excited me that finally there was this kind of collaboration between, or like, what do you call it? Not emergence, but like amalgamation of like house music or electronic music with that traditional Nigerian sound, then ended up in the final version of Afrobeats, or what is now we call Afrobeats. And some of the artists, and we were talking earlier, like I play a lot of Afrobeats songs in my sets. I don't just do Afro house specifically. Like I'm saying, I do some of that that Kuduro, like Angolan Afro house sound, which has a lot of those elements. But I play a lot of Afro beats in my sets too, like Yemi Alade, like artists like that, all day, because it really, really resonates with me and fits completely within that construct. Obviously, a lot of the Afro beats is lower BPMs, but the higher BPM stuff is really easy to fuse into the sets in a way that's really cohesive.
Do you feel that you have to do that for the audience in the US to take the Afrohouse, or to the people that are unaware of Afrohouse, to introduce the sound, or actually to make the party live? Do you have to have the Afrobeats playing with the Afrohouse, or is that something that you're just doing as a cosmopolitan kind of situation?
I mean, it helps, especially when you're in an international city and you are promoting your events, and a lot of your people who attend your events are also of Nigerian, like in Boston, huge Nigerian community in Boston. So that was really easy, but it also is the mission of my party, Uhuru Africa, to really create space for that Afro dance floor sound, which started with Afro house, but has now been expanding. As Anane said, like, this is music. And if like, sometimes we get caught up in that, like labeling of this or that or whatever, but the music, if the music moves you and the music moves me, then I want to share it, and hopefully it'll move other people too. But it's not, I don't feel like I need to do that. I just feel like it's what resonates with me, and you test it out, you know? Yeah. But the Afro beats, so the question of Afro beats and Afro house artists collabing together, it is slowly happening now, and Bodhi has been a champion of that. I'm really excited to see more of it.
Yo, definitely. And Bodhi, yeah, definitely shouts out to Bodhi being making that move. And, I know there's a lot of stuff going on with him and regarding bringing more of those people towards the sound, or introducing it to the Afrobeats world. In the same instance of the Afrobeats world, we have a new surge of popularity around music, or a slower version of Afrohouse, as some people have sort of stated it, or the little brother, Amapiano. The genre of Amapiano. It's making huge impact. It's already being lots of Afrobeats artists already jumping on that Amapiano sound and delivering that sound. How did, number one is, did we miss a trick as Afrohouse producers, record labels, and people in the industry by not, following that kind of route and inviting maybe some of the Afrobeats to get more involved with us? And how does that also develop in regards to your scene currently in North America? Amapiano, is it affecting the guys there? Are you feeling the same vibe as we're feeling in Europe?
Last time I heard Amapiano, we were in South Africa last December, and we were with Maphorisa, who's one of the pioneers. And it's beautiful. I mean, it's amazing. But again, it's, we're always coming back to this question of, what should it be, and how should it be, and what's it affecting, and why isn't it not here or there? And again, the question about music is letting it makes its way, it makes its way to who it reaches and who it touches and where it's felt the most, and it's interesting how, even this conversation, for example, North America versus Europe versus all the different conversations that you're having. And for me, it's like, but isn't it just music everywhere? Am I missing something?
No, you're not.
Just honestly speaking, like, am I missing it somewhere that you know, it can't, it's not global, it's by continent? Where is it affecting, or where is it not? Because I've always thought of music as universal, you know, and when we start to you know, put it in departments and categories, and it just kind of goes back to you know, finding this equation that doesn't exist for music and for any art, I feel. And art should really come from what influences the creator of it, you know. That's just my take on it.
Yeah, I mean, Anane is going to release things that resonate with her. I'm going to release things that resonate with me, and it's cultural. You know, I love favela funk, or you know, the baile funk music, carioca funk, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, and
it makes its way into my sets. Am I going to consciously go after material to release on the label? Maybe, if it's something that fits into what we're doing aesthetically, maybe. But I'm not going to consciously shift gears and introduce the music where now I have an uphill battle to get people to resonate with something that's culturally not a New York thing or a South African thing where most of my followers are. And that applies to all the different genres. You have to kind of just follow what works for you. I'll give you a great example, drum and bass, right? I remember being at a party in New York 25 years ago, something like that. And Baby Bambaataa got up and said, "This is the next hottest thing you're ever going to hear in your life," because he had just come from Europe, and you know, drum and bass was it. And he played a drum and bass set, and the New York crowd was just like, "Okay, this is okay," you know. And it was like, "Okay, well, maybe we'll get it 6 months from now. Maybe we'll get it, you know. You just got to let it marinate." But that's not our culture. That's not, you know, yeah, there may be elements of it that make its way into our music, that make its way into popular culture. There's drum and bass in a lot of popular songs now, and to some extent, but the way it hit in the UK never, ever hit here. Yeah. You know what I mean? So that's the same for all these other genres.
Do you think that's because there's, and once again, I'm going to get murdered here, there's a kind of a American or a New York kind of like, you know, what's for us is us kind of feel?
Listen, if you go to South Africa, they're not rocking drum and bass in South Africa. They're not rocking drum and bass in South Africa. It's cultural. It's regional. Everyone has their thing that they're into based on how they grew up, what they eat, who they hang out with, how they speak. It's and some of it, you know, crosses over, but you can't force that. Things are going to cross over if they're meant to cross over.
I think it's also what JoJo mentioned earlier in tastemakers, and having tastemakers and those who have an ear for music. And I think being here on this panel says something, that we each bring something to the table that's special. Being able to hear music that we find special, and when we share it, it's accepted and it's received well. So whether it's, you know, again, whether it's a drum and bass, or, you know, I want to say New Yorkers, we and I can say we tend to think we've seen it all and know it all. But at the same time, we're in a city that is a lot and being exposed to so much, you know what I mean? And Doug was saying that, and what he grew up with, and I think the same, you know, being in a club in the early 90s where in one night you could literally in one night on different levels hear everything, you know, from hip hop and R&B and soul and reggae on the second floor dance hall, and then you had house upstairs, and for some reason Follow Me trickled all the way through all the dance floors. That was one song that could make it through all those dance floors and be played. So it's not, you know, if we continue to be on this question of this sound is here and why isn't it being played there, and this sound here and why isn't it being played there, then we will continue to be in circles in this conversation. But if we individually take on this responsibility and the integrity of our hearts, of what we feel is good music, and just want to share it with the world, and wherever that inspiration comes from, that's what matters, and that's what sets everyone apart. When you do it from your heart and from your soul and with passion, and wherever it's coming from, that's what resonates. You can't deny it. But if you're coming, well, I was on a vacation in wherever, and I heard this sound, and it's the next thing, and I want to bring it here because it should be the next thing, that is different. But if you hear a sound and you're there, and we just experienced this, we were on some islands, and we say, you know what, we want to record these drummers from this island because it's so special, and we want to bring it over to share it with the world. It's a different approach. Whereas people are just looking for what's next. If you're looking for what's next to be on top and to be the next, it gets a different response. But if you're wanting to share something that you've just discovered, and being a tastemaker and being open to sounds, to music, to artists, to cultures, then it resonates.
Awesome. Yeah.
It all comes down to what it is you want to have happen, right? If your goal is to have commercial success, then you go find Alicia Keys to sing on your house track. That's going to be commercially successful. So that's how you get it to the masses. And yes, is other house music going to trickle out into commercial radio? Probably. There's a crack in the door, but I don't think any of us here on this panel are putting out commercial music that way, that kind of commercial music anyway.
Yeah, totally. Okay, cool. All right, I'm gonna try and close this up because we've been on here nearly 2 hours now, and I said it was gonna be an hour and a half, so I wanted to keep it concise. I'm gonna ask the final question. What I'm gonna ask is each individual person just to speak a little bit about what they think the future of Afrohouse will be. So I'm gonna give you 2 minutes to 3 minutes. I'm gonna try and cut you in short today. So I'm not gonna start with Anane first. I'm gonna start with Carlos Mina first, and then I'll go on to the next person. So Carlos, please, the future, what holds bright?
The future, I have no fucking idea.
Or what you hope it will be like, I should say then.
more good music, more beautiful words and beautiful sounds to feed our spirits. I'm open to whatever comes. I'm not looking for anything.
Awesome. Okay, awesome. And so if people want to reach out to you and find you and get at you, how would they do that?
I'm at Casamena on all my social platforms, at Casamena. And the label's Ocha Records. We're on Bandcamp, ocha.bandcamp.com. All our releases are there. And I'm on Twitch, and actually starting a show next week on Twitch. But there's one show that we have on the Twitch channel, Casamena Twitch, which is the Simmer Room, which is Koflo's program on Wednesdays, 6 to 9 Pacific, 9 to 12 Eastern. And we're starting another show next week as well.
Awesome.
So, just Casamena.
And who should we be looking out for, producer wise, from the North American shores? That's doing Afrohouse, or someone that you're thinking, that's a person that everyone should watch out for in the Afrohouse scene from North America.
From North America?
Yeah.
I wouldn't say like a specific person, but definitely Anane's label puts out amazing music. Look for her stuff. Doug's label puts out amazing music. Mickey Affleck puts out beautiful music. It's all Afrohouse. It's a blend of soulful and Afro. That stuff's amazing. And as far as artists, there's so many. Everyone's making wonderful music. I'm not gonna, I'll be biased and start naming people on my label. Just
awesome.
Keep an eye out for the music we're putting out. Follow us on social media, and yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Carlos, for joining us. Doug Gomez, the future of Afrohouse. What's your vision? What's your viewpoint?
I don't know about the future, but I know the beauty about music is that no matter what it is, whatever subgenre, whether it's Afro tech, techno, Afro techno, whatever comes next, it's always going to have its own, following. Carlos mentioned about the drum and bass. It didn't take off big in New York, but you know what? They still had little parties. They still had Concrete Jungle. I can't remember all the other parties, but
Oh my God, Concrete Jungle.
yeah, music is that we all have our own taste, and it's great that we all have our own taste. Because imagine if we all had the same taste, there will probably be only one style of music, and it's great that we all have. With the music is expanding, it's different styles of subgenres, whatever it is. I don't know what the future is, but as long as there's support for the music, I think that's the beauty of it. And there's always, whatever subgenre comes out of it, I'll always have a little following, whatever. And you just gotta make the best out of it.
Awesome.
And like you said, drum and bass didn't take off in New York, but it still had a big following, little parties and everything.
Yeah, awesome. Okay, how can people find you? Where can they find you?
You can find me at my label, Doug at medicumberecordings.com, on my Instagram as well, DJ Doug Gomez. And just releasing music, try to put out quality music. I know it may seem like I put out a lot, but I do a lot of good demos, what can I say? So.
Awesome. And he's jumped back in, and I'm hoping to get him before he disappears again. Stan Zeff, what do you see as the future of Afrohouse and your vision for it?
For me, Afrohouse is spiritual. It's a spiritual connection with music. It's something that I really love and I'm passionate about. And for me, the future is just spreading that good word and spreading that good music, and introducing as many people as possible to the music, undiluted in its pure form as we make it, and just letting people just enjoy the music and without any seriousness to it, just push it in there, put it in their path, and if they accept it, cool. If they don't, and that's good as well. But just sharing what I love and the music with everyone.
Awesome. And where can people find you?
Website is tambourparty.com. For the label, the Bandcamp is tambour-music at bandcamp.com, as well as all the social media. Tambour Party and Stan Zeff for Instagram and Facebook.
Okay, and shouts out on the Tribe Tambour cruise that you're doing. Amazing stuff. We're really loving what you're doing there, guys.
Thank you so much. Obviously, because of everything that's going on now with COVID, we've had to take a break for a couple of years. But maybe next year we hope to be back with the cruise again, as well as some other stuff we wanted to start doing festival-wise. So, hopefully, as things get better, we'll start introducing our festivals and cruises again.
Awesome.
Pushing
Thank
the
you
music,
very much.
as always.
Thank you so much, Stan Zeff, for joining us. JoJo Flores, the future of Afrohouse, in your vision and your view.
I think what Adam was saying with the collaborations is going to be a big part of it. Also think because Africa is so huge that a lot of different countries are going to start getting involved and sort of bringing their sound into it as well. So it's going to get interesting, I find, for Afrohouse. A lot of different influences that are going to come in a few years from different countries.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Okay, and where can we find you and how to get hold of you?
Instagram is DJ JoJo Flores. Twitter is DJ JoJo Flores. Bandcamp is godsol.bandcamp.com. Mixcloud is /JoJo Flores. SoundCloud /JoJo Flores. So it's actually Twitch.tv/JoJo Flores.
Everyone should be on Twitch. If no one said, get onto Twitch ASAP. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
You don't think so?
I'm not on Twitch.
All right, Adam Gibbons. Yes, sir. The future of Afrohouse, and in your opinion.
Yeah, I wish I could tell the future, like Carlos said. If I did, I would be a rich man right now. But I would say, no, I'm really excited for what's to come with collaborations like we were speaking about, like JoJo touched on too. And you see it happening more and more. And not to keep giving him so much props, because there's a lot of props to go around, but Bodhi has been one of those people who have really been championing that, not just with like his work with Davido, but you'll even see earlier with his work with Almost Sangare from Mali, I've been a huge fan of hers for a long time, and I've opened for her a couple times. She's amazing, and to see the collaboration between, I mean, she's a multiple Grammy-winning artist, so to see that those collaborations starting to be pulled into our space. Also, those artists recognizing our space and wanting to work with artists like Bodhi is beautiful, and I want to see more of that. Like JoJo said, like a lot more countries are starting to see to recognize Afrohouse music, not just South Africa, but even this is even like maybe 10 years ago when I was in Africa the first time, traveling around to some of the other countries that weren't even producing or didn't have a lot of artists like Mozambique, Zimbabwe, Botswana, places like that. 10 years ago, they didn't have a lot of artists that were producing out of those countries to rep them, but the music was huge there. And that's starting to now seep into other places like Morocco with Si Al-Assad, with FNX and those guys. I'm loving some of the music that they're doing with the influences of their country and their culture and where they grew up. So that's beautiful too. So hopefully, you know, this just keeps spreading and keeps, you know, emerging and evolving into different things. And that's what I'm excited for.
Awesome. Awesome. And where can people find you?
All things DJ Adam Gibbons, all things Uhuru Africa. So it's UHURUAFRIKA. Twitch, you know, Instagram, Facebook, all that good stuff. I just started a monthly live stream for Uhuru Africa. I did one in collaboration with Mikasa Holiday, the festival that I've been doing for the last 11 years in Mexico. So they were void of having one this year, or I guess it was last year. They asked everybody to produce a live event for the festival. And so I did that. It was a lot of fun. And I wanted to do some more of that. So I just launched that last month. We're going to do it every probably second Saturday of the month. I have one coming up on the 12th of March, and that'll be on Twitch. So if anybody wants to follow us there, please do so. And thanks to everybody on the panel. Thanks to you, Mr. Silk. Thanks to Drums Radio. This has been really wonderful and really beautiful. And I love all you guys that I'm here with individually.
Thank you so much for being with us. And finally, Anane, thank you so much for joining us. Tell us your vision of the future. I have a feeling I know what it's going to be anyway.
Thank you so much to having me and for this space. Like the guy said, you know, if I knew the future, we'd all be rich and probably retiring somewhere far away. But there's good things coming. You know, we all, I think, especially after this year, we can all agree that we hold on to hope. We keep in the light, and we do everything from, you know, creating from our hearts and continuing to share that these times will get us through. I see great things happening with the Afro music, the Afro sound, and, you know, the coming together and the technology allowing us to explore so much, and other artists sharing as well. So I'm looking forward to that, and hopefully collaborating with, there's a couple of guys here that I would love to collaborate with as an artist as well, and make things happen. You know, I'm not on Twitch. I'm not for the virtual world. I've stood strong, although I've done a few Nulu Movement live streams. I stand strong and not conforming to the virtual world, just my personal feeling, because I feel we will come back to being together again. You can find me on all at Anane's World on all social media, and then it's nulumusic.com and ananesworld.com. And once again, thank you. And I will be looking for the women's panel.
I'm actually going to call right on that right now.
So thank you. Thank you very much.
Awesome. Thank you, guys. I want to say thank you very much once again to everybody that joined in today, everybody that joined in on the S. I've seen Aluku on there as well, just joining and kept with us on this. We're doing these because we want to build the Afrohouse scene, in our vision, a platform that allows you guys to speak, and having more panels like this. Next month, we definitely will be having the female panel. I'm looking forward to that because, you know, it's something I really want to push and really want to push out there. Having the females, having their voice out here. We will be doing loads of that stuff here at Drums Radio. Big thanks out to Adam Gibbons, Carlos Mensa, JoJo Flores, Doug Gomez, Stan Zeff, and Anane for joining us today. Thank you so much, guys. Please follow me. I am Mr. Silk on all socials. Thank you so much. Thank you very much. We'll see you soon, guys.
Thank you, guys.
Please. Oh, everybody, please subscribe and follow the channel. We're trying to grow a YouTube channel, just like, you know, the other industries have, the R&B, hip hop, and all those guys. We're trying to grow something which allows everyone to see us and grow with us as well. So please do subscribe, like, and press the bell. I think they say all the time, isn't it? And so you get the notifications and stuff. Okay. Thank you so much, guys. Thank you for being with us tonight. Thank you very much.